First, let's explain the definitions of bureaucracy and post-bureaucracy, and also explain a little bit about their differences. Bureaucracies are based on rational legal authority, whereas post-bureaucracies are no longer based on rules, but based on consensus and dialogue. In a post-bureaucracy, employee positions and responsibilities are based on merit instead of a hierarchy, and people no longer operate in a full-time position on the organization. Bureaucracies are a very common structure seen today. They are impersonal. People's worth is determined by the tasks they accomplish. Very little individualism is allowed, and decisions made on the individual level are more rare. They have structure. Bureaucracies typically have various layers of management, sometimes being similar to a pyramid. Employees will have exchanges with their superior, who then has other exchanges with their superior all the way up to the top. Power is given to only a few. As I said before, the individual has less power here. Decisions are typically made by those at the top, and the time needed to make change is great. They have many administrative procedures. The procedures of bureaucracies are often very important. Employees must refer to those highly detailed procedures often.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Hitchcock. I'll be discussing the first part of the topic for post-bureaucratic structures. These organizations or structures are used in many organizations, including the military, government, and large corporations. Max Weber, who was alive from 1864 to 1920, is considered the founding father of modern bureaucratic management theory. One of his driving questions was what holds society together. He felt it had to do with authority. Traditional authority at the time was based on the belief in the sacredness of tradition and charismatic leadership, and authority was based upon personal devotion to the leader. A bureaucratic organization is one with rigid and tight procedures, policies, and constraints, and the company or organization reacts with stringent controls as well as reluctance to adapt or change. Bureaucracies are very well organized with a high degree of formality in the way they operate, and decisions are made through an organized process. After the post-industrial era, we adapted a new version of the bureaucracy called the post-bureaucracy. In this organization, rules are replaced with consensus and dialogue based upon personal influence rather than status. Responsibilities are assigned on the basis of competence for tasks rather than hierarchy, and people are treated as individuals rather than impersonally. And the organization has an open bureaucracy so that rather than permanent employment, people come in and out of the organization in a flexible way, and work is no longer done in fixed hours or at a designated place.
Hello, my name is Fernando Gomez, and I'll talk about the upsides of the post-bureaucratic organizational structure. First of all, this organizational structure is principle-based. This allows for flexibility and intelligent response to changing circumstances. People are asked to think about the reasons for constraints on their actions rather than rigidly following procedures. Post-bureaucratic organizations spend a great deal of time developing and reviewing principles of action. Second, institutionalized dialogue. Consensus of a kind is created through dialogue, which is defined by the use of influence rather than power. That is, people affect decisions based on their ability to persuade rather than their ability to command. Third, trust is abundant. A post-bureaucratic organization encourages all members to seek mutual benefit rather than maximizing personal gain. Fourth, there's a strong emphasis on organizational mission. Mission statements play a crucial integrating role in an organization that relies less heavily on job definitions and rules. One fundamental weakness of bureaucracies is the belief that people are responsible only for their own jobs. This emphasis helps employees understand the key objectives in depth in order to coordinate their actions intelligently. And finally, there is an expectation for constant change. And therefore, this type of organization attaches timeframes to its actions. One element in structuring a process is to determine checkpoints for reviewing progress and for making corrections, and establishing a time period for reevaluating the basic direction and principles of the effort, or whatever effort they were involved in. And these are some of the most important upsides and advantages of a post-bureaucratic organization.
I'm going to introduce the downsides of post-bureaucracy organizations. There are several key problems that I'm going to introduce. First, control. Control relies on normative control. Rather than relying on written policies and procedures as in regulative controls, normative controls govern employee and managerial behavior through generally accepted patterns of action. One way of think of normative control is in terms how certain behaviors are appropriate and others are less appropriate. For instance, a tuxedo might be the appropriate attire for an American business awards ceremony, but totally out of place at a Scottish award ceremony. There would generally be no written policy regarding disciplinary action for failure to wear the appropriate attire, thus separating formal regulative controls from the more informal normative controls. Risk. Risk of bad decision if people have greater discretion. Fairness. Possibility of treatment based on prejudices. Post-bureaucracy organization weakens job security and intensifies time pressures. As a result, it creates a greater stress for employees. And finally, it shifts away from narrow focus on efficiency.